Okay, the custom firmwares for Bitmain S21 are coming. I've been running a beta version of the Vnish Asic To The Moon auto-tuning firmware on this S21 for over a month now, gathering some numbers. Let me tell them to you now. I get all my Bitcoin mining hardware from Musk miners, and you can too. Link in the description. Also, quick sidebar, remember when GPUs used to make money? This video is brought to you in part by Salad, a compute sharing platform that is not just crypto mining. It allows big companies to use your idle computers for AI workloads and other stuff. I'll talk about that a bit more later. Okay, so pros and cons to using third-party firmware on ASIC miners. The good things, this firmware will auto-tune the chips on these hash boards so you can run it more efficiently. If you're unaware, this ASIC miner has a couple hundred chips inside. Each one is basically a little computer doing its thing. So in this box, you've got hundreds of computers, and because of the way silicon chips are produced, each one of those will be an ever so slightly different quality of chip. The overall speed of an ASIC miner is just the sum total of the speed of these 324 little computers running inside. Some chips are stable running at 500 megahertz, some are only stable running at 450 megahertz. And a small handful of chips inside this box can be pushed over 600 megahertz without freaking out. But the way this thing works when it's running stock, they bundle together similar quality chips on each hash board. There are 3 hash boards, and then they run that whole hash board, 108 chips, at the same voltage and clock speed. But that speed and voltage has to be whatever the lowest quality chip on that board can handle. So running them that way, each of the 3 hash boards just having one voltage and clock speed, leaves a little bit of capability on the table. These custom firmwares are able to try out different chip frequencies individually rather than in groups of 108, and run through tests to get each chip individually at its own highest megahertz speed at the lowest voltage where it will still be stable. And on the dashboard when it's running, you can see how each chip is running at a different speed on this matrix, therefore allowing you to use the least amount of electricity to keep it running at the same stock speed, ideally more efficiently than on the stock firmware. Or you can run it at the highest voltage that each chip can handle, which will boost its speed over the stock speed, and that's overclocking. Efficiency be damned. Or you can run the clock speed really low, which makes it so you can run the voltage really low, the lowest that these things can handle while still being stable, which will crank the overall efficiency up. And that's an underclock. Stock firmware gives you 2 choices, stock speed and 1 underclock speed. The underclock speed runs this machine at about 160 terahash for an energy savings of about 1,000 watts, which ends up mining about 80% of the Bitcoin in the same amount of time, but only at 60% of the amount of power used, which is an efficiency win. With this firmware, you have all these options for speed, from 113 terahash all the way up to 243 terahash, and somewhere in there is the Goldilocks zone of power to speed ratio, where you'll end up getting the most Bitcoins per watt for your time. And it's important to note that that speed will be different for all miners due to the silicon lottery. So I've run a bunch of tests on this thing and I have a bunch of numbers, but first let me talk about GPU stuff really quick. I still have a bunch of GPUs that I never got rid of, like an idiot. Skip ahead if you don't care about GPU stuff, but this Salad thing looks like it's actually pretty good. And I wouldn't agree to talk about it if I wasn't actually doing it and it looks like it's making me some money. Salad is a company that makes your computer hardware and internet bandwidth available for companies to rent. If you have fast internet, you make a little more. If you have a bunch of RAM, you make a little more. If you have a 3080 or better GPU, you make a little more. It looks like by default, Salad just has your computer spec mining for people, kind of like NiceHash. But there are also these container jobs, they call it, which pay a bit more. It has your computer set up these virtual machines that companies can harness to churn out AI images or stories or answer questions for people about the world or whatever AI does now. It can also run simulations or whatever else people rent tons of computer power to do. Anyway, the point is, there's still a lot of us that have old Ethereum miners just sitting around doing nothing. And with this, you can turn them back on. I've been running it for a week so far to try to get some real numbers. They have it set up where after 50 hours of continuous work, you're a star chef, get it because it's Salad, and then they'll give you the higher priority jobs, which make a little bit more money. So I didn't want to just install it and see the numbers at first. I have it set up on 2 different computers with Ryzen 5 processors and RTX 3080 GPUs. It's been going for a total of 421 computer hours, and right now it's making about $3.60 per day. The math is pretty easy. These computers are pulling about 300 watts each, so 600 watts continuous, 0.6 kilowatt hours at about 14 cents per kilowatt hours is about 8 cents per hour to run. So each day it costs about $1.92 in electricity to make $3.60, netting me $1.68 a day. That's $50 a month. This will definitely not make you rich, but if you've got these computers sitting around doing nothing anyway, why not let them pay your phone bill or go out to the movies like once? Because holy shit, have you bought food at a movie theater recently? Salad. There's a link in the description. It only takes about 5 minutes to set it up. After you've let it run for about 50 hours, that's 50 computer hours. So if you have 2 computers, only one day, then you get the higher paying jobs. So don't be discouraged at first when you see like $1 a day of profit. Back to ASICs. Here are the S21 numbers. Running this 200 terahash machine at 200 terahash, but auto-tuned to hopefully get the most efficiency, this thing runs at 3,485 watts. That's instead of the 3,643 watts it initially ran on the stock firmware. So that's 158 less watts, adds up to 3.8 kilowatt hours of savings per machine per day. For me, that's about 70 cents per day per machine of extra profit. Also with this firmware, you can actually set it to stay at a certain temperature rather than speed, because it can switch between its auto-tune profiles without having to turn off and turn back on. It can just slow down to 190 terahash, 160 terahash to keep the temperature down. So the miner can simply change on the fly the speed at which it's hashing so it can stay within the same temperature range. On a really hot day, if you're already up against the max fan speed, like if you live in the South like I do and summer's coming, you can just tell this thing, hey, don't go over 75C, and it'll just slow down the hash rate once it gets really hot in your warehouse. When you start getting into overclocking, I mean, you can ask this machine to run all the way up to 240 terahash. But at that point, efficiency is basically out the window. The watts per terahash just goes up as the hash speed goes up, which means the amount you pay to get back the Bitcoin you're getting just goes up higher and higher the faster you ask this machine to run. Bitcoin mining is also a race against time. The difficulty factor is always going up, and with all these new generations of machines coming online, it's always going up faster than it was before. So you'll get more Bitcoin per day today than you will a month from now. So there could be an argument for running it faster even if it costs more, as long as it still costs less than buying the Bitcoin. Does that make sense? I'm making this video before the halving, like 5 days before the halving. So really all the numbers are just basically out. And after that, efficiency will be the king of all factors in Bitcoin mining. Either really cheap power or running this thing really efficiently. And a custom firmware can help you run your machine more efficiently. But at what cost? Here comes the cons. They take a cut. It's a small cut. At this release, they're taking a dev fee of 2.7%. There's a little widget you can add on the console to see it. So right now, that fee is siphoning off 4.3 terahash. So you'll have to redo all of the math to make sure that at your electrical cost, that bump in efficiency is still paying off while giving away some of your hash power to get it. For this machine, it runs somewhere around 18 joules per terahash on stock, even though ASIC Miner Value puts it at 17 joules per terahash. That's confusing. But I got it down to 17.4 joules per terahash on the asic.to firmware, and that's a tad bit more than 2.7% more efficient. So it's technically more efficient to run it on the third-party firmware, even though I'm giving some of my hash power away. Another pro is that you can spoof your fans through the firmware. Bitmain has changed the fan connectors. Can you see those? Yeah, Bitmain has changed the fan connectors to these fat fan connectors on the newest model, so you will have to buy all new fan spoofers. Or one of these Cloudline Nord boards, is that what this thing's called? Yeah, one of these Nord Cloudline boards from Pivotal Pleb. Zach Baumsta sells these things. I'll put a link in the description to that too. This, with these little danglers, can now spoof these fans also. And it can actually control one of those inline Cloudline 8-inch fans with the shroud. Another story for another time, but there's a link in the description. If you're looking at buying some S21s and taking the tops off and making them get all dusty and dirty in your warehouse, I have a vendor that I have thoroughly verified to be legit and US based, and they are Musk Miners, friend of the channel, friend of the industry. There are links in the description for how to contact them. It may be the very best time right now to buy these machines right at the halving. It also may not be, and I don't know, and neither does anyone else. So good luck out there, vault dwellers. Salad.